there's somebody who's like kind of a big exporter. Talk about inflation and like what were some of the predictions that came out of this?
Yeah, I can't name his name because of who he was, but I'm actually shocked that he was even at the conference. Let's just say he was a major exporter of within the US. So he exports things from the US. And when I say major, just think, anyway, he predicted during COVID, right before we had inflation, he was spot on about the incoming inflation we would have based on what he was seeing with exports, because the US can export all kinds of stuff, but a lot of that is predicated on what our currency value is compared to other currencies.
Yeah.
Because if the dollar is stronger or weaker, foreign countries are more or less incentivized to do trade with us. So back prior to the US experiencing inflation, he saw this coming. He saw this coming a year in advance because he saw what the export trends were. He saw this coming and he positioned himself to do very well. Now, his main business is exporting, so that's how he generated all his wealth, which was a lot. And he wasn't a presenter at the event. He was just a guest there. He spoke up during one of the conversations when it was like, hey, this is going to happen again. We're going to have inflation again. It's coming back. And he goes, I know this because I'm looking at the data and it's the same, if not worse, than it was when I saw this happen during the COVID era of this first inflationary spike.
So we'll walk through the impact of what that looks like, right? First of all, for him, right, as an exporter.
Yep. So we'll do it with him and then after. So for him, obviously, if the US dollar becomes stronger, and by the way, there was an article published in Bloomberg yesterday, 2 days ago, about the dollar, how strong it is right now.
Yeah.
As the dollar gets stronger, it's great because we have great purchasing power in the US, but
it's bad for an exporter.
Yeah, it's bad because people outside the US don't want to buy US things because they're expensive. So for him, it's going to hit exporting and volume for him because there's going to be less stuff being exported. So
but connect the dots here on why inflation in the US leads to a dollar that is stronger than other currencies.
Right. And this is going to be kind of complex, but I think the easiest way to think about this is that all of fiat currencies are fake currencies. I don't mean fake as in they don't exist. I just mean that they're manipulated by a central bank. They are increased or decreased in volume based upon how an economy is going. Right now, we have higher inflation, so we need higher rates to combat that inflation.
Yeah.
As rates go up, more people want to have that currency that has a higher rate because they'll generate a higher rate of the return. So rates just a short while ago were 0% in the US. So putting your money in a bank was like, no, don't do that. Put it in stocks. That's why we saw a huge spike in the stock market. Well, when inflation hit, they raised rates because that's how you combat inflation. So people, I want to hold cash now. I'll put the cash in an interest-bearing account. Well, it's not just people in the US that do that. It's other people too. I want to hold
people in Japan who have 0% interest rates right now and have a lot of wealth. They're like, well, I could keep it in Japan or risk-free, the risk-free rate of whatever they're getting, 5% in the US. Yeah, that's a good example of like shifting the money directly to the US. And then because they're buying US dollars.
Yep. And there, it's not just individuals, say in Japan. I mean, it is individual traders, but it's actual. I mean, it totally is. You're right. It's definitely individual investors that are doing this, but it's also like countries that are converting their reserves to say US dollar because they can get a good return. Well, the result of that is that it strengthens the power of the currency. And this is in relation to other currencies.
Yes.
So even though all fiat currencies may not be the best tool out there for like compared to hard money, say like gold, silver, or Bitcoin, the reality is that the US dollar is still the heavyweight in the world. And so this strengthening dollar has made US exports more expensive, which again is going to slow down these exports. And it's like this vicious feedback loop because then it's going to like, prevent exports from happening, which is going to do this more, inflation, which is going to make us do higher rates. And it's just like this crazy feedback loop. And we'll see how the government combats this. But in the short term for investors who are saying like, what's the forecast for the next year? Here's a dude who is a major exporter from the US. And he's telling us right now that the same thing is about to happen that just happened several years ago. And, do I know personally the data? No, I don't know. I didn't see it. I'm just taking
No.
his word for it. But I don't think he had any reason to not tell us the truth.